Hi, I'm Brian Anderson, and this is Head On. With me tonight are Wes Strickland and Celia White. Wes I've known for a number of years, being a business owner of a local restaurant, Delicados, and resident of Protection Island. Now, but I think tonight, are we talking about off-roading? Is that correct?
There's a certain amount of off-roading involved, but that's how we get in and out of the jungle where we work, providing free medical care in Sierra Leone.
So Sierra Leone, this is in the Horn of Africa?
No, it's in West Africa.
West Africa.
North of it's Guinea, and south of it's Liberia.
Okay, so why a medical project in Sierra Leone?
A schoolmate back in the 70s during university, dear friend, was in the biology department, I was in the chemistry department. He was from Sierra Leone, got his PhD as a molecular biologist and went back home. Where we work in the Garama Chiefdom in Kono, which is 230 miles east of the capital, is where Aya was born and raised. And it's a village of farmers, and believe me, it's like going back 1,000 years ago.
Okay, and Celia, how did you get involved in this?
When I was in high school, I saw a poster advertising for the inaugural fundraiser, which didn't have anything to do with healthcare at the time, but I was really curious about West Africa and called Wes because I was an intrepid student that got involved in everything. Okay. And from there, we founded the organization, and I was the secretary, been a board member for the last 8 years that it's existed, and then this year was the first year I was able to make the trip, because it usually happens in the fall or the spring when I was formerly in school.
Okay, so how does a restaurateur and a graduated student, I guess, and you mentioned medical, how does that all connect?
Well, originally it was she was helping to fundraise to get recomputerized the University of Sierra Leone. Aya had returned back to Sierra Leone after the war over conflict zones, and the government had asked him to take over the university to bring it up to Western standards again. Initially had gone in there to recomputerize and tie the campuses together from the administration in, and while I was there, saw a huge need for medical aid, given that there was 6.5 million people and only 120 doctors to serve those people.
Sorry, 120 million?
120 doctors with 6.5 million potential patients.
So
very difficult.
And if some of them are like 230 miles into the bush,
people did not get medical attention. Where we work, virtually zero. And when we went in there, about 28.5% of every kid under 5 died every year. That's how bad things were.
So what was the life expectancy
42.
then? 42.
Yeah, that was your average life expectancy. And so the Village Medical Project started on that note of trying to do something to aid the country and to put something together that other people could follow. Almost like you mentioned the restaurant, almost like a franchise. We're not selling anything, it's all for free, but it was actually going in there and setting up, giving free medical care to everyone that we were involved in our project, and keeping impeccable records so that we could gauge what we were doing correctly.
Okay, so to jump forward, you've been doing this now for
8 years.
8 years. Have you noticed a difference or a change? You mentioned infant mortality.
The under 5 mortality, because you're looking at gauges that the WHO uses to gauge the health of different countries and villages, and you're looking at the pregnant women, the infants, and those under 5, and using that one baseline of 28.5% for under 5 mortality, we've brought that down to 1.17%. I know these are little numbers, but understand that Canada is 0.7% for under 5. So it gives you a reference point of what we've been able to accomplish over the 8 years.
So that's phenomenal, because to make that big of a change.
Oh, big time, big time. And you can see it in the economy of the villages. Has been raised over 300%. You can see the absenteeism of the children going to school has dropped down to practically zero. Because the kid's not going to school if it's got malaria or other parasitic infections, or if the parents are infected, the kids are staying at home to look after them. So by having these villages at a higher level of health, mom and dad are out working the farm, the kids are in school, and things are a lot better.
So Celia, you made the trip over this year. Was it a bit of an eye-opener for you?
I mean, whenever I travel, I try to expect the unexpected, which in itself is impossible. But I've been to Africa before, and it was a similar experience. And I think the eye-opening part was finally meeting the people that I'd worked with over email for the last 8 years, but in person, and just recognizing again how extraordinary these people are in the work that they do day to day. That's far beyond the work ethic that anyone I know has here.
So is it a step back as far as like creature comforts and things like that? I mean, you say you're in the bush, and we're seeing some pictures running in the background of villages. So the villages have running water and
Oh, no, nothing.
nothing?
They have streams. Some of them have working wells, freshwater wells. These are
slowly dissipate as the dry season encroaches.
most are mud huts, and yeah, so that's basically
No
no
electricity?
electricity. We did get solar put in, and we have one stable clinic that we have a nurse there 24/7 who's Sierra Leone, and we put her back into school to get her master's degree in nursing. So she's a nurse practitioner, which has been an incredible benefit for us. And she helped choose another nurse in a different area of the chiefdom that we are introducing ourselves to. We initially started in 4 villages, about 1,400 people. We've now expanded it to 24 villages. In this last trip, we did 2,347 patients,
Okay.
all free health care.
So do you grab them all into one area and then?
No, we
Process it?
have about 6 different larger villages that we set up our clinic using whatever facilities they have there. A lot of times it's a school built by World Vision, which is on a rectangular shape, and we're able to set up our registration area, our malaria testing, lab facilities, doctor station, triage, a pharmacy. The people go right through the clinic as a family unit. We also, every couple of years, do a full census. So every hut, every habitat has an ID number, just like everyone's home has an address, and we know everyone in every habitat and everything we've ever done. We have hard copy from the registration forms as far as everything that's been done, and we digitize that too, so we have it on computer.
So you have a database
Totally.
of everybody that's over there?
And years of healthcare treatment.
So is that something as the secretary for the society, is that something you look after? Or?
No, I would say it's more the people with access to the local demographics and statistics when we're in the field are looking after that.
Yeah.
I mean, as a secretary, I'm like
You're
taking
doing the
minutes.
board
And
work.
We
yeah.
have
Okay.
one of our Callie Black, one of our volunteers, is from. She's the head dietitian for the Washington State. So
really?
she was, and she also lived in Sierra Leone working for the Peace Corps back in the 1980s. And so she was on this trip, and she's been doing a lot of our data.
So you mentioned you go in with doctors and pharmacists. And are these paid people or are these
No,
volunteers?
everyone pays their own way. They cover all their expenses. When someone gives us $1, that dollar goes to purchasing drugs and medical supplies. All of our accounting is done by volunteer CPA. Legal work, same situation. There are no paid administrators or anything like that. We're all volunteers. We cover our airfare, our food, lodging, whatever the case is. We all chip in money for in-country travel. And so
Zero
that way.
administration.
Zero administration. The only thing we have to pay is, I think it's $64 or so per year for our annual filing with the BC government for our corporation.
Okay.
Okay?
So when you go in with doctors and pharmacists, is there a specific role that each of them is playing? Or?
Yes. I mean, depending on what their background is, then we initially get put in positions. Obviously, the doctors more or less are going to be in the doc station. The pharmacists are going to be in the pharmacy. But there again, Celia, very, very smart person, energetic, not a medical personnel, but she was in the malaria lab. And she was tracking because our test kits are time sensitive. When a patient comes in, they have a hospital wristband. It's got an ID number that matches their registration form. And then she would apply that number to the test kit and then tracking to make sure it doesn't go past the time limit, so you don't get a false positive for malaria. And then it was another person, Callie Black, who's our dietitian, who was tracking these patients down as they moved through the clinic so she could mark them positive and negative on their wristband, on their chart. So once they finally got to the doctor's station, they would have all the information on that sheet before they saw them.
I see.
The volunteers that came each have a significant role, though, in terms of, I mean, it's not a volunteerist project where anyone is able to sign up.
Yeah.
We're not trying to sell or market an experience for the volunteers. And there were a couple of folks who have lived in Sierra Leone and could therefore speak fluently Creole, one of the lingua francas of the country, and it's, yeah, most people had a lot of experience in the work that they were bringing to the table, and then there was the odd person like me that had no particular skill but have been involved in the organization for a number of years and have that sort of heuristic knowledge.
Yeah, it's not medical adventurism,
Yeah.
it's work.
Yeah.
And imagine in 15 clinic days doing 2,347 patients. It's a lot of work. And some of this is minor surgeries, cutting fingers and toes off, infected hematomas. All the way across, we have blood analyzing machines, pregnancy tests. It changes the way you're going to be treating someone if they happen to be pregnant and they have malaria. So all of this stuff has to be taken care of, and everyone's aware. And they do a lot of studying. I send a lot of information packets out. And we had a couple of folks that were tropical medicine specialists. And there again, we pull 2 or 3 military doctors in to work with us through my partner, Aya Bakima. So that we're just not us coming in from the West, but we have indigenous medical personnel working with us.
So
We
they're
just,
local,
yeah, we just can't draw from the civilian medical because there's not enough of them. But with the military, they could be in Somalia, they could be rotated out to Egypt, whatever the case is, so they're not counted in that mix of numbers. So that's why we draw from them.
And the only paid staff of the Village Medical Project are Indigenous folks who work as nurses in the clinics all year round. And so we send them, we pay for them to go to school, get access to education, and then come back and employ them with resources for the clinic, and then once a year make this trip out to reestablish connections and fill the clinic with more drugs. And
Yeah. So what is the number one problem, I guess, or health issue that they
Well, it's
have?
a combination. And like I said, when you're looking at this area, all of us, we had ointment. If you got a scratch over there, it can go completely sideways on you just because of the environment and become infected. That case, this last trip of cutting a person's toe off, started from athlete's foot. Simple as that, and went sideways. When you're looking at the malaria rates, when we first started, we were about 97% of everyone in the villages had the killer form. It's 7 different strains of malaria, and there's 2 of them active in Sierra Leone, but the most one is the killer, Plasmodium falciparum, and this is what we specifically test for and treat. And it's just a 3-day course. I mean, I've had malaria. It definitely makes you, your empathy level for the people once you've had it before, of just how debilitating it is. I mean, you're looking at 104-degree temperature, chills, sweating at the same time, and these are peaking and going. Then you add on other parasitic infections and worm infections and anemia, and all of this adding up, especially with our particular target groups being the under 5 infants and pregnant women. They're the most susceptible to die when all of these things come together and bear on their bodies.
And the context of their health isn't just the environment either. It's also that they lived through a pretty serious civil war and then more recently an Ebola outbreak. So there's lots of attributing factors to what's going on there, and the fact that people may not be as resilient as or have the same access to resources that we have here.
So some of these things are attributed, or I guess can be treated with pharmaceuticals,
Oh, for sure.
and some then are just straight doctors. So you need surgery or whatever.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and they don't have access. We do from time to time. We're able to medevac to a town where there's a hospital. They have to be something that we can't deal with. We had one particular girl who was an epileptic. She was been without her medicines for about a year. She, even though she could get the medicines free, she had no way to get there. She couldn't afford transport out. So she was having 6 or 7 seizures a day, and this last seizure she had the day before we arrived was at nighttime, and she fell into the cooking fire while she was having a seizure. So we were dealing with that. Our nurse there, Mary, had already dealt with it and had treated her, and then we went from there and actually transported her out to get her meds. And now we actually supply phenobarbital, and it's now one of the drugs that we have on hand to treat epilepsy.
Wow. So that's a success story apart from...
There's so many success stories, and we've been lucky. And I guess it's like when you turn right, you get hit by a bus, you turn left, and everything's... The situation is when we arrive, it's amazing the things that we encounter when we show up in a village. Yeah.
Okay. So, and this all started basically going to, you said 4 villages to start with?
And now we're in 24. So once a village gets into the project, as we expand, they're in it. And so there's no going back. They're in the project. So we've got more expansion to do, but there again, our resources depend on how quickly we can expand.
And how many people, obviously.
Exactly.
Because if you had more doctor volunteers, I guess you get into more villages.
Well, and you also need more funds, because the more people you're dealing with, the more resources you need, the more medical supplies, surgical gear, drugs, pharmaceuticals.
Now, don't you get some of your pharmaceuticals donated?
Yes, we do. We have a group of doctors here in Nanaimo that collect and give us drugs. Central Drugs is extremely helpful on supplies and giving us and having access. There are pharmaceutical companies in the states that have drugs and drug lists in which we have access to, which are free. And then the rest of it's coming out of India through a contact here in Nanaimo, an RCMP officer. His brother-in-law has one of the largest pharmaceutical distribution companies in Mumbai, India, and they're all WHO approved. And then we also buy in country. So I send the list out to both of them and then do a comparative shopping to make sure we get the best bang for the buck for our donors.
So it's not necessarily Costco, but you're looking further.
Well, it's amazing how reasonable, where you might get a 300 milligram clindamycin antibiotic pill here in Canada for $3. I'm paying about maybe 8 cents. So you can see how far things go, because we're stocked up more than any hospital in the country. In 2009, we had the acting chief medical officer for the UN working with us for a few days just to see what was going on, and she was astonished the gear that we carried with us. Almost 2,000 pounds of medical supplies.
Obviously not on your back. Those
No, that's
on
where
the
you have
trucks.
your off-road vehicles that were going in and out of the bush. You know, all these vehicles have snorkels because sometimes we're going through streams. The bridges we cross are just 2 logs that are lined up to match our tires. And going up the hill, which is one area that we work, is like a series of 3 triple diamond ski runs just to get up.
For 4 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, other organizations have chipped in to donate too. I mean, hotels a couple of years ago donated soap. They're little tiny wrapped soap bars, because that's really useful in birthing kits.
Yes.
And yeah, anything that we can use that we can also get donated saves us an enormous amount of money, and therefore, yeah.
Just the birthing kits. We make birthing kits up. It's in a Ziploc bag. It's got a biodegradable garbage bag that's opened up so the mother has a clean place to lay, a razor blade for cutting the cord, dental floss for tying it, a couple pairs of examination gloves, a bulb syringe for cleaning the mucus for the infant after it's the newborn. All of these things are there to give an extra positive step in their survival. And with that mother, prior to that, with us seeing her, she's been on prenatal vitamins that carry her to term, plus another 3 months. All these things are extremely helpful in turning that tide towards more survival.
So is this changing? Now, you mentioned the infant mortality up to 5 years, but is it changing life expectancy as well?
Oh, no question about that too. Now, the country itself has made some inroads. Now, the Ebola outbreak basically did a U-turn on that, and completely what small little medical that they had in the country there again went sideways with the Ebola. Everything shut down.
Because you weren't able to go in that
we
one
were out
year.
for a little over 2 years, close to, yeah, over 2 years without getting in there. We're too touchy-feely. We could not do the work that we do in the villages in moon suits, and that's how we would have had to. And I had to wait until, before pulling the trigger to get us back in, so to speak, of getting this going, I had to wait until the dress code had changed. 6 months before we went in, just to take someone's pulse, you would have had to have a face mask, full bodysuit, and double gloves. So as soon as that changed and you could actually be dressed this way, is when we went ahead and set a date to get back in.
And it not only changed people's health, but also people's trust of the healthcare system, where during the Ebola virus, sick people would be taken away and would never come back. So to some community members, that means you don't trust doctors. So it was interesting to go back into that atmosphere and rebuild trust and figure out how to build relationships.
Because basically the people that you're looking after are poorly educated or uneducated.
I wouldn't say that. I would say they're differently educated.
Yeah.
And I mean, these people know a lot more about farming than anyone in my community, but
But they wouldn't speak English.
many of them do speak English.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and those that go to school usually learn English. And they also speak Creole, and then they speak usually like 3 to 4 other local dialects. So they're pretty intelligent in that way.
Yeah. Well, put it this way, dropping, we could take a Sierra Leone where we work and drop them in Manhattan, and they wouldn't last very long, about as long as if you dropped us in the jungle by ourselves, you know.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
there's that whole situation there where they survive in a pretty tough neighborhood.
And maybe I phrased it poorly, but what I was really getting at is like, because you mentioned the trust, because I think, you know, if you're strangers, it's very difficult to create a level of trust, and for people to, you know, we can have a conversation and build trust easily because we're talking the same language. It would just take a little longer.
Yeah. Well, and that's the beauty of having people who know the language too. That there's a way higher risk if no one knows how to speak to the local people. There's almost no point in being there.
And
so we have translators, and then we had.
And then going in and out for 8 years.
Well, I
They
was
know
just
us,
gonna say
they
that
know
you-
the level. I mean, in Matama, sitting down with the village chief, I think it was like 2010, they just gotten their, or 2011, just gotten their new school built. And we just finished all of our clinic work, and I was sitting there having the local hooch that comes out of a palm tree, and with the village chief, and I just commented on how great this school was, and he just said, Mr. West, he said, without you people coming in here, there would be no children in the school, and that really hit home.
Wow.
And he was serious. Yeah.
In early trips, I think some of the younger generations or cohorts had never seen white people before,
No.
and weren't sure what we were, if we were ghosts or.
And to give you another idea real quick, our first year, the docs that were with me, they were out of a teaching hospital in Chicago. They were a level 1 trauma specialist in the emergency room. They took photographs of a bunch of kids and to bring back large blow-ups so they could hand them out. When we got back the next year, they were all dead. That's just to show you the change that's happened from when we started and what these villages were dealing with as far as survival and health and where they are today.
So on one hand, it could be very uplifting, but it could also be a bit depressing as
for
well.
sure,
So
for sure, yeah.
how do you deal with that?
You know, when you're there, you pretty much don't because you're working. It's when you on your way home is where this stuff starts to hit you. There isn't, you're dealing with an organized chaos. It's like going into any emergency room. You're looking at what's going on. You're saying, how the heck are these doctors and nurses dealing with all this? Well, they are. And I'm sure there are things that take place in there that hit them when they get home that just sort of build up, but not necessarily while they're working because they're trained. And the same thing, whether it's Celia, myself, docs, nurses, you know, you just persevere and you're there to work and you can't lose it.
Now, there was another thing. You talked about the financial commitment because everybody basically pays their own way, but there's a physical commitment as well because aren't you running a risk of catching something?
There's lots of things to catch over there. You have river blindness. It's the second leading cause of blindness in the world. It comes from a black fly bite. You got the tsetse fly for sleeping sickness. These things can kill you. Of course, you've got malaria. Then you've got all the other parasitic infections. We eat a lot of doggy medications when we come home. Albendazole to sort of clean us out, ivermectin that you'd give your dog for heartworms, we're taking to ensure that we're helping as far as river blindness. And of course, we're taking a prophylactic for not catching malaria. And we're taking that on a daily basis and up to a week after we get home.
So that's a big commitment as
Yes,
well.
it is. And then when you're in country, you know, it's is eliminating the risks as many as possible. You can't eliminate them all, but the two largest ones are probably a vehicle accident and a snake bite. Because the snakes that are over there, the cobras and the black mambas, especially the black mambas, you're done. So it's basically telling everyone just to watch where your feet go, you know, and it's keeping your eyes open.
And I guess you can't wear protective leggings.
No, we're in sandals, tennis shoes, shorts, scrubs, you know, and it's just, you know, they're not out to get you. It's just, you just have to watch where your feet are going.
Okay, so are there any other risks while you're over there, or they don't have bandits and that sort of thing? Like,
Well,
it's not like going to Mexico?
well, put it this way, where our base camp is, it's in a hotel now. You'd call it that, and confined area with a large wall, and there are 2 guards with submachine guns, AK-47s, that are on guard 24/7 while we're there. So they're looking after our vehicles, and they're walking the grounds, and so we get good sleep. We couldn't go into town or something like that and just get a regular room because we would be targets because of the amount of drugs that we carry. So this facility does put 2 guards, well, there's 2 sets are on 12-hour shifts, and so that is a reality.
But I guess that's also comforting as well. That,
No question
like you
about
say,
it.
you can sleep.
You bet, and they're nice folks, and we treat all of those people while we're there. All the guards, all the staff, everyone. And it's good for us too. When we used to live in the bush, we got to a point to where we couldn't grow the project because of our confined space and not having full access to good, safe food all the time for our Western stomachs. And Aya found this particular place.
So I warned you at the beginning this would go quickly, so now I'm telling you it has gone quickly.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we're at the stage where we're wrapping up. I
Okay.
just want to let everybody know Elizabeth Hines will be on the next show. She'll be talking to Ian Gartshorn and talking about post-holiday stress. I'm already stressing out about Christmas presents for 2017, but so you go from one side of the world to the other side of the world. Anyway,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thanks.